Now to Florida, ladies and gentlemen, we have John Chappelear, Mr. Six. Okay. So, John, welcome, my friend and colleague and co-host. So glad that you can make this because I so respect what your voice is right now and where it's going, and just welcome.
It goes all the way back to, wow, I wish we had an instruction book. You remember talking about that a while ago?
Yeah.
Here it is. Here's the instruction book. I wrote this after I ruined my life trying to get rich and be a big shot. Okay? Because that's what I learned in college, and that's what I learned in business school. That's what I learned in fraternities. That's what I learned in everything. And the key is to be in charge, to be in front of you. What does that mean? I have no idea, but as long as I'm in front of you, I am being more successful than you are. You know, the idea if you're flying first class in a plane, you're better than the people flying in coach. You're not better off, you're better than. And all of those ideas had to get absolutely destroyed before I could begin to sort of crack this shell of hubris and allow a little bit of humility to come out. And the thing for me, and you were talking about recovery, because I wrote the Daily Six for personal change, and that evolved then into professional change, which evolved into organizational change. But since then, I've also written this for alcoholics and in recovery, not so much for them because there's programs for alcoholics and addicts and everything, but there's no program to bring the family back together. There's no program out there for the addict and the family to sort of reconnect after it's been sort of out of balance because of the addiction issues. So I wrote a program to help create that. I've written a program for police to help reduce stress and to help reduce responsiveness and to minimize tragedies that may happen because nobody really seems to have the talent, or it's just not an inherent talent. I mean, we are driven by stress. We are driven by energy, and those things tend to make our decision making less accurate than it should be. You know, it's the more adrenaline is rushing through our life. That's great if you're trying to run 100 meters, but it's not too great if you're trying to work through the fine points of a high tension situation, or you're trying to close a really important deal. You can't let ego drive it. It's got to be something other than ego. And so, you know, I was thinking here about, you know, the idea here is to change, and the purpose of the reason my company is called Changing the Focus is because that's what I hope people can do. Stop changing the focus on what's out here and start focusing on what's going on in here, because in here, if I'm centered and I'm balanced, then what happens is my influence out here grows astronomically. People will listen to what I have to say because I'm not this crazy guy in the corner acting manic or trying to prove that I'm in charge. I remember saying to an executive once, I said, if you have to tell people who's in charge, the one thing I can assure you is you're not in charge.
Exactly. You know, and they won't believe you're in charge either.
Because it's like, no, it's how you present yourself. It's how you seem to other people. You know, it was also interesting because for years I've been talking about this difference between working today and working in the future. And as you go up in an organization, you move further and further into the future as far as what you're working on. I mean, when you're a CEO, you're working on the thing that you're going to do in 4 or 5 years. You have very little to do with, does the store open on time? Is the phone getting answered? Or those things? And that's what's key, because if you don't pay attention to that, it doesn't matter what's going to happen in 5 years. You won't be in business anymore. So it's this microscopic vision that has to expand to a macro vision, and then back and forth and back and forth. Am I looking to where I need to be? And am I making sure that what's happening today will allow me to be there? So, you know, I don't want to get off on a rail. It was just so much of what's being said is just so spot on. Yeah. I hope people are listening and taking notes, because what we're asking them to do is really not hard. It's just uncomfortable. You know, it just is.
And it takes courage, I think, you know, and, you know, I've had similar experiences, and I reached a pretty bad place about 15 years ago. And I don't mind in any way talking about this. And at that stage, you know, I'd spent the first 40 odd years of my life not even thinking about empathy or emotional intelligence. I was chasing a version of me that didn't exist, right? I was living through a version of me that didn't exist. And then it all came tumbling down. And I had a profound experience. I realized over a period of 3 or 4 months that what really, really mattered was not the achievement or the products or the outcomes. It was hope. The most important thing for me and all other human beings is hope. And that can be driven through various manifestations, through practical programs, like you said, or the way we communicate, or how we make people feel. But to say that to somebody who's on the treadmill of success and ego and it's go, 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 it's hard to get them to listen, and it's very hard for people to step off that.
Right.
And unfortunately, it takes midlife crisis or these kind of things to happen.
I know Terry and I have talked about this a number of times, because what I call it in the Daily Six is I call it my gift of devastation. And, you know, and these are gifts that you would really like to return. You do not really want to keep these gifts. This is divorce, bankruptcy, death in the family, having to lose your job, moving out of all sorts of horrible experiences that are just devastating you. And they tend to affect the thing that has driven your ego the most, whatever it might be. You know, you lose your family because that was what you really thought was showing to the world that you were running a wonderful family, or you lost all your money or your business. And when that happens, you're willing to think of a new way to rebuild your life. But until that happens, and it's funny, there's a little 20-second video blurb that I did, I don't know, a year or so ago with a group. And that exact quote is, you know, humans beings require pain to create change. They don't have to have it, but they seem to only be willing to honestly make any changes. I mean, you don't have to have a heart attack to go on a low-fat diet.
Yeah.
You don't have to,
absolutely.
but I guarantee you that lettuce tastes a lot better after the heart attack than it does before the heart attack.
Absolutely.
So it's like, why do I have to wait until I can only see my kids every other weekend to be a good parent?
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, and the reason is because I've been driving myself with ego and hubris and not with humility and inclusion. And
exactly,
you know, once you begin to sort of, and it's funny when I do get people who are sort of, like you said, they're sort of ego and hubris driven, and you get them to step back just a little bit and pay attention to maybe there's a little voice back here saying, this might not be the healthiest process for you. You know, when you go out to dinner with business associates and then you can't find your car, that's probably not the best way to spend the evening, searching the town for your car. So, you know, there are many ways to go about it, and you don't have to get, you know, wrecked on the road of life. But you can make changes without pain. But I'm telling you, we humans, we require a great deal of pain before we'll actually begin to step into the.
John, I am with you. I am with you. We are prime on time. You and I are going to spend next 6 weeks enjoying.
No. You're right.
And ladies and gentlemen, we want you to come to it. We're going to talk a lot more about the Daily Six. Thanks for popping in, John.
That was wonderful, John.
Thank you. Thank you, Simon. It's wonderful to see you guys. If I was on a rant, I apologize.
No, it was spot on.
Crazy when people don't see it.